Want to know the latest in soccer? Then listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast. From MLS, the World Cup, and the Premier League, we've got you covered. The latest updates, the hottest matches, and news on the league's top players. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast.
David Beckham scores the goal to take England all the way to the World Cup finals.
Listen now.
Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Soccer Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Steven Melendez, and I'm excited to bring you the latest and greatest in soccer news from around the world. Now, what a wild week we just had in the Champions League, guys. I mean, for every single game, my jaw was on the ground. I mean, I'm sure you guys were feeling the same way, and I am just so excited to talk about these games with you guys, and that's exactly what this show is going to be all about, at least definitely the first half of it. So in the first segment, we're going to be talking about, like I said, the Champions League quarterfinals. I'm going to be recapping the games, my thoughts on them, pretty much what happened throughout each game. In the second segment, I'm going to continue with the European matchups. This time we're going to be talking about the Europa League quarterfinals recap. I know those games happened already a little while ago, but with the semis just around the corner, I just felt like it was a great idea to just talk about the quarterfinals, just recap my thoughts on the games. For the third segment, I'm going to be continuing my pretty much breakdown of all the top 5 leagues in the world. This week, or this show, I'm going to be talking about La Liga. Just do a full season breakdown, just like the previous leagues that I've talked about. I'm going to be giving you guys, obviously, my thoughts on the title run, my biggest surprises and disappointments, and, the best players in the league so far. And, of course, with my last segment, you guys are obviously going to want to stick around for that one, because I got my top 10 players of the La Liga season. So make sure you guys stick around, and we have just a full-on exciting show for you guys today. So let's just get started with it, with the Champions League quarterfinal recaps. And we're, of course, going to be starting with the first game of the week, PSG versus Atalanta. Wow. I mean, we're starting off with a real good one here, with PSG just squeezing by Atalanta 2-1 with just an unbelievable barrage of goals at the end of the game. But let's just talk about what this game meant for both sides. I mean, Atalanta, of course, with their unbelievable run so far this season, no one expected them to be where they are. They're easily the Cinderella story of European football. Unfortunately, they just couldn't contain PSG for the full 95 minutes or so of the game. And for PSG, this is finally a huge. I mean, you guys should already know this. If you guys have been watching my shows, I'm a PSG fan, and for us, this is just a huge weight lifted off the players, the front office, just the owners, and of course the fans. The huge weight lifted off their shoulders to finally get into the semifinal, their first semifinal appearance in 25 years. So let's just get right into the game. So, this game was Atalanta's to win, pretty much. They had complete control of the game, especially in the first half. They looked like the much more organized squad throughout the match. Atalanta's pressing caused literally all sorts of trouble for PSG. They were forced to pass it back to Keylor Navas, nearly every time they touched the ball. It was like they got it, they couldn't find anybody up ahead and just looked straight to Navas. I mean, in the end, it was a smart way to play so that they didn't lose the ball and Atalanta's like ridiculous attack didn't, hurt them. But Atalanta was just non-stop pressuring them. And of course, with that pressure, it left a lot of space open in the back. And when PSG were able to get through, I mean, it was wide open. And Neymar, for as good as he was in this game, he missed some unbelievably easy early chances. Like that first goal, that first shot that he missed, it was literally a breakaway. It was just him and the goalkeeper. And he just blatantly missed it to the right side of the post. I mean, obviously you can imagine how I was when I saw that happen. I thought that was a sure goal. All he had to do was just chip it over the goalkeeper because he moved up on him, and no, he just did not happen that way. But however, that wasn't his only opportunity. I mean, he had another one with his left foot that he completely botched as well, and it just looked like that pretty much set the tone for the game early on, and it just felt like it was another one of those nights that PSG was going to bottle, especially when you consider the fact that Atalanta got a score by Pasalic. It kind of just seemed inevitable because of the amount of pressure that Atalanta's attack was putting on PSG. I mean, if it wasn't for Keylor Navas, they would have been down possibly 3-0 going into the halftime. But luckily, it was only 1-0. So it was definitely a manageable game. But yeah, that first half was, all Atalanta. Even though PSG had more possession, Atalanta took advantage of PSG's unorganized defense to take the lead. Early in the second half, it was much of the same that we saw in the first. Atalanta continued their pressure on PSG, which caused them problems. But there were a lot of yellow cards handed out in this game. I mean, both teams got, I'm pretty sure it was at least 5 for each team. No red cards, thankfully, but definitely so many yellows just left and right. More for Atalanta in the first half because their aggression was evident and, it got them into some trouble. But PSG started picking them up as well in the second half. Now, Atalanta should have had a second goal early in the second half, but they just couldn't find the back of the net. It just did not work out for them for some reason. But then pretty much everything changed when Kylian Mbappe came in the 60th minute. I mean, his pace and skills were nearly impossible for Atalanta to contain, as he had a few chances early on, but just like Neymar, he couldn't find the back of the net. And it just, like I said already, it felt like they just weren't going to find the goal. It felt like Atalanta was going to get a second goal and PSG were just going to fall apart. But Atalanta just didn't answer. In fact, when Mbappe came into the game, you could tell that the tactics of Atalanta changed. Like, they started pushing back a little bit. They weren't putting as much pressure on PSG, and that actually, gave PSG a lot more space and a lot more freedom to do what they wanted. And of course, Neymar would just, absolutely ridiculous. I mean, he had I believe it was a Champions League record, 16 successful dribbles in this game. I mean, he was doing absolutely everything for PSG. And of course, to have a guy like Mbappe alongside him, it was what he needed to get them over the hump, even though they still just couldn't get a goal in. But PSG did have control of this game late on. It just took all the way into the 89th minute. It was actually the 90th minute when Choupo-Moting gave a perfect cross to Neymar. I don't know how he wasn't offside, but it was so close. And then he botched the kick. He actually tried hitting a goal, and he botched it. But it was just so lucky that it ended up right into Marquinhos' leg, and he kicked it into the goal. And that's what gave PSG the equalizer and life. It was you could tell by the reaction from these PSG players how happy they were to finally get this goal. It kind of just felt like, all right, we got the goal. Let's relax and try to get this other one. And literally not even 3 minutes later, PSG found their way past Atalanta again with literally a beautiful combination from Neymar and Mbappe. And Neymar just passing it right between two Atalanta, well, pretty much like one Atalanta defender, but like just in between the defense to find a perfect Mbappe run. And then Mbappe gave it in to Moting for the winner. I mean, it was unbelievable to see PSG make it through. I didn't think it was going to happen. I mean, I'm a PSG fan, and I felt like it was over the way Atalanta was just absolutely dominating us. But, yeah, that's the way it went. And the man of the match, I have to give it to Neymar. I mean, there's nobody else. I understand Mbappe came in and absolutely changed the game with his pace, but, like, Neymar had an assist. He had, like I already said, 13 completed dribbles, and he had completed 75% of his passes. He was unbelievable, and there was just something about him in this game that I haven't seen in him as a PSG fan. There was something different, like his maturity and just the way he went about the game. Even though he got those early misses, he didn't let it deter him. He just continued to fight, and eventually they got through. A couple mentions that I want to say about the game was a couple players that I also want to mention that just missed that man of the match was Choupo-Moting. I mean, for him to come in, he got that decisive cross to Neymar that obviously opened it up for Marquinhos, and then of course the game-winning goal. That was unbelievable. I actually love Choupo-Moting. He was one of those players that he entered. He didn't have a big name, but like he worked so hard. Of course, Mbappe changed the game completely. He got that game-winning assist, and just his pace changed Atalanta's tactics overall. And then, of course, you got Kimpembe, who I know Thiago Silva's the bigger defensive name, but Kimpembe was all over the place for PSG. I just felt like he was the only defender that was really aggressive and really tried to stop Atalanta's attack. But yeah, those are a few of the guys. I mean, I also got to mention Papu Gomez, who was for Atalanta, who was the creative hub for them, just doing everything that he could. But he was subbed out in the 60th minute, I guess, to add some fresh legs, and of course that coincides with Mbappe coming in, and like I said, that changed the tactics of Atalanta's side, and ultimately changed the game. So. Yeah, PSG going through first semifinal appearance in 25 years. Next, we're going to be talking about RB Leipzig versus Atletico Madrid, with RB Leipzig getting through the Atletico defense twice. I mean, overall this game was a bit boring to watch, not gonna lie, with both teams like pretty much getting nothing going. But honestly, Diego Simeone, the manager for Atletico, made some interesting decisions. I mean, he had João Felix and Alvaro Morata on the bench. I mean, when you have a knockout game like this, I understand the way that Atletico play is, they wait for the other team to make mistakes, but you can't afford to lose anything. This is all a knockout. This is all knockout format. You need goals. And those two were easily their best attackers this season. I mean, Diego Costa did literally nothing in this game. And a lot of that has to do with, what's his name? Upamecano. I mean, the defender that I had already talked about in the preview for this game, he was huge. And, I mean, for the most part, it was pretty even for both sides as they had, opportunities to score. But neither were able to get it past the goalkeeper. I mean, it was just... in the halftime, it ended at halftime 0-0, so it was pretty uneventful. But in the second half, there was definitely a lot more activity. But of course, you would expect with both teams needing a goal to get through. But the first goal actually came really early in the first half when Leipzig found space on the right side of the box, and a great cross from Sabitzer found Dani Olmo wide open in between a bunch of Atletico players. There was at least 6 in the box, but none of them were marking Olmo, and he headed it just right into the net. It was too easy for them. Not what you expect from the Atletico side, but yeah, that's pretty much how they got that first goal. And of course, then right after that goal, pretty much right after, they brought in João Felix, and surprise, surprise, he changed the game for them. He made so many good runs, and he was able to get into the penalty box and draw a foul. He wasn't going to let anybody else take that penalty kick. I love that from a young player. I mean, he's like, with the amount of veterans that you have on that squad, I would not have been. So I was actually surprised to see him there. But it speaks to his maturity and the fact that he made the penalty and the equalizer, and it was a strong one because the RB Leipzig goalkeeper, I can't remember his name, guessed the right way, but Felix was able to put enough power into it to get it by him. They did after that bring in Morata for Costa after the goal, to apply even more pressure on Leipzig, but it eventually backfired. The pressure from Atletico opened things up for RB Leipzig and allowed Tyler Adams, the United States youngin, to come in. He was wide open just outside the box. He was able to pick out where he wanted to score, and a quick and little soft deflection got it past Jan Oblak, probably one of the best goalkeepers in the world. I mean, it was in the 80th minute, no less. So it was pretty much done at that point. And of course, the game ended 2-1. So, I mean, it was huge victory for RB Leipzig. The man of the match of this game has to go to Upamecano. I mean, he won 9 of 11 duels, 3 of 4 aerials, 3 completed dribbles. He completed 91% of his 82 passes, and he had 3 interceptions. I mean, if the fans of the world didn't know who Upamecano was, they definitely do now. I mean, this guy, this 20-year-old French defender, just looked unstoppable and calm under any kind of pressure that Atletico threw his way. I mean, it was just eye-opening to see what he could do on the big stage. And I guarantee you're going to see him going to a big club soon. I mean, he did re-sign with RB Leipzig. I mean, he is just 20 years old, but trust me, he's got plenty of time to go and make some noise in any other big club. Now, a couple guys that I want to mention, definitely Sabitzer, who got that assist to make the opening goal. He completed 91% of his 58 passes. He was definitely the creative attacker that this team needed with Timo Werner gone. And I haven't even mentioned that. That's the crazy part. Timo Werner wasn't in this game, and this scrappy RB Leipzig team was able to pull out 2 goals against a tough Atletico defense. And, of course, this would not be smart if I did not add Tyler Adams, who made the absolute decisive goal late and sent RB Leipzig into the semifinal. And, of course, I have to also – I always add someone from the other team, if it's warranted, and it really was here with João Felix. He came in and made a huge case to be made that he should have been in the starting 11 to give Atletico more attacking spark. Obviously, that's going to be on Simeone in the end, but yeah, so that's it for that game. Next, we're going to be talking about Barcelona versus Bayern Munich. My goodness. I mean, if you weren't watching this game, you were doing something wrong. I mean, the Bayern Munich absolutely destroyed Barcelona 8-2. This was an absolute embarrassment for Barcelona, but also an incredible performance by Bayern. I mean, it just goes to show how good of a team this is. Easily the best team in Europe. And if they're not favored, I mean, they're going to be favored. They are favored to win this match, especially with, the teams that are left in the field. And this game, you knew it was over right off the bat because Müller, a beautiful combination with Lewandowski in the 4th minute to start the scoring off. And then Barcelona did answer back, but it was with an own goal by Alaba. And then by the 31st minute, Bayern had 4 goals. Bayern were up 4-1, and technically Bayern had 5 goals because there was an own goal by Alaba. That was the starting goal for Barcelona. It was just, Barcelona just looked completely lost and allowed Bayern to do whatever they wanted. Literally whatever they wanted. And you could tell by the reaction of the players that they didn't know what to do. And usually this is where Messi comes in, where he comes and does some, ridiculous magic and gets them back into the game. But the tactics that Flick, the manager for Bayern, put together to stop Messi was unbelievable. Every time I saw Messi touch the ball, there was one or two players right on him, like marking him the whole game, not letting him do anything, not letting him to let his greatness shine. And and that's what they needed. I mean, Barca did score first in the second half, which I'm sure gave some Barcelona fans hope. Some not so much because you could just tell the way this game was going. But it was a nice goal by Luis Suarez. I mean, I gotta hand it to him. But then after that, oh my God, that was so short-lived because the goal of the match, 19-year-old Alfonso Davies, my apologies, showed complete skill and composure beyond his years, flying by Semedo as if he wasn't even there, probably ending his career at Barcelona in the process, and waiting just long enough to get Kimmich wide open in the box to make it 5-2. I mean, that right there was the close. They could have ended the game right there. It did not matter. But just to add an extra embarrassment for Barcelona, Coutinho, the man that they sent out on loan, scored or assisted on the next 3 goals. Just going to show that Barcelona have no idea what they are doing. This is easily the end of an era for Barca. I mean, because they have so many players on the wrong side of 30. I mean, not even Messi made any sort of difference. And this is a crazy stat. Bayern had 26 shots compared to Barca's. Now, there are so many players in this match that performed well for Bayern, but the man of the match has to go to Thomas Müller. I mean, he had 2 goals, 1 assist, completed 89% of his 36 passes. I mean, it was really hard to pick any one player just because of how well they played, but he definitely deserves this spot. And a couple mentions, I have to go with Alfonso Davies. I mean, that he was the only other guy that I was like maybe putting him there in the man of the match just off that one play. But overall, in the entire game, he played really well. He obviously had that assist. He had 5 successful dribbles, and time again, he just goes to show that age is just a number, folks. Now another player I got to put in there is Kimmich. I mean, he moved back to right back from his usual midfielding position this year for the injured Pavard, and just continues to look like one of the best young players in the world. I mean, the composure for him is, I mean, I know he's 25 years old and he's been playing for a while in first-team football, but my God, I mean, Kimmich, I would love him on my team. I mean, obviously any player on this side, I mean, Alfonso Davies, of course, but I'm sure any team would want him on their squad. But yeah, I'm gonna stop talking about that just so that Barca fans can, just mellow with that. But my goodness, that was ridiculous. Now, moving on to another huge, this is actually the shock of the quarterfinals, with Manchester City losing to Lyon 3-1. 3-1. Manchester City, another bottle in the European competitions for Manchester City. I mean, and they got off to a terrible start. They just did not look themselves, and possibly taking this matchup for granted. I mean, Lyon had nothing to lose, and they played with a chip on their shoulder throughout the match. They stopped a usual fluid and clinical Man City in their tracks, and in the first half got on the score sheet honestly, it was terrible defending by Man City. I mean, the laziness of them. I mean, I know Diego Carlos was the only defender to run back on that play, but I mean, that honestly probably spelled the rest of the game for them, because you could just see, like, there was literally no other defender running back, and Cornet was following his attacker, his teammate, and it just slotted it home past Ederson. I mean, it was terrible positioning by Ederson as well, who had a ridiculously bad game. But yeah, Lyon went into the halftime at 1-0, and for most of the second half, Man City looked like they were refocused and ready to get past Lyon and into the semifinal against Bayern. And they did get on the score sheet first with a really nice goal from De Bruyne, delivered with a nice assist from Raheem Sterling. I mean, it was just a lot of attacking football, a lot of pressure that Man City were putting, and it worked out for them. But that was pretty much it, because they continued to put on pressure, and they actually probably pushed up even a little more, but it backfired. They lost the ball in the midfield, and Aouar, I hope I'm saying, I butcher his name, had the ball in the midfield and gave a perfect ball to Dembele, who slotted it right past Ederson to take the lead, and that was it. That was all she wrote, because, the fact that after this, the biggest thing, sorry, I'm scrambling right now, but it's just because I couldn't believe what I saw after this. It was like somewhere around the 85th minute, 86th minute, but Man City had a golden chance, like on a platter for Sterling. Raheem Sterling, he had the goal right there. There was nobody in front of him. He was like 5 feet away from the goal, and he just launched it over the bar. I mean, I guarantee you he's not going to be able to sleep tonight after that, because literally not even 30 seconds later, Lyon came right back and scored a third goal off a terrible rebound that Ederson allowed. I mean, he should have had just an easy catch, and, they just go off to try to score another goal, but he couldn't hold on to it, and Dembele once again came through and scored the final goal, making it 3-1 and sending Lyon into the semifinal. And yes, that does mean that we have 2 French clubs in the semifinal. First time, I believe, in Champions League history. And this is the first time that not a single English, Italian, or Spanish club is in the semifinal of the Champions League. I believe definitely in a long, long time. No doubt about it. I mean, this is a change of the guard, folks. So the man of the match, I have to give to Dembele. I know he only played 15 minutes, but the fact that he only played 15 minutes and got 2 goals, I mean, how can you not pick him? I mean, he made an instant impact for this team. Some of the guys that need to be mentioned are goalkeeper Anthony Lopez, who made 6 huge saves, especially late in the game when Man City were fighting to try to get back into the game. And, of course, Houssem Aouar, who got that assist, that beautiful assist that was the decisive goal in the match. He had 4 successful dribbles and was fouled 4 times. So he was definitely that creative player in the midfield for Lyon, especially with Depay just not having as good a game. Aouar was so important for them. And I'll mention Kevin De Bruyne, because he did get that solid goal, and he was pretty much the only Man City player that made a difference on the club. So, yeah, that's going to wrap it up for the Champions League quarterfinal recaps. Make sure you guys stay tuned for the next segment, because I'm going to be talking about the Europa League matchups. Get ready for that one.
Are you looking to get your college football fix? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? The GSMC College Football Podcast is your ticket to all things college football. Join us as we talk college football, from the national championship, the college rivalries, the bowl game, to the Heisman Trophy. To which conference is the best? We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, the Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between. Download the GSMC College Football Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Welcome back, everyone. In the last segment, I gave a total breakdown and recap of all the Champions League quarterfinal matches that occurred this week. And now I'm going to be talking about the Europa League quarterfinals, especially when we got the semifinals just around the corner. And we're going to be starting that off with Inter Milan versus Bayern Leverkusen. I picked this game as the most exciting to watch in out of these quarterfinal matchups. And it didn't disappoint. I mean, they had 3 goals. All 3 goals, well, because I got to say, Inter Milan made it past Bayern Leverkusen 2-1. And on that note, all 3 goals were scored in the first 25 minutes. So there was definitely fireworks early in this game. And honestly, all of this was, I know, like I said, Leverkusen did get that goal right back. But this was all Inter Milan, and specifically Lukaku, showing their class over Bayern Leverkusen. Lukaku caused so many problems for Leverkusen's defense with his impressive runs and just incredible strength. The 2 goals that were scored early for Inter, both were made possible by the hard work of Lukaku. I don't know who this is. Because I saw a lot of him in Manchester United the past few seasons, and he did not look anything like this. Just his body language and the way that he, just goes about his business for Inter, it's just completely different. He clearly has found a home here, and just talking about these goals, the first was caused because Lukaku literally pinned his defender in the box, and he did get a shot on goal, but then the rebound was picked off by Barella, and he was just perfect accuracy into the left-hand corner, the bottom left corner of the goal, just past the defender. It was a beautiful goal. And then the second was literally all Lukaku, because he once again just pinned his defender to his back and just carried him into the box. It was unbelievable. And then as he was falling down, he was able to just get enough on his leg. He was able to get enough on the kick to get it past the defender and just roll into the goal. It was very impressive to see Lukaku just absolutely dominate the early parts of this game. And it could have easily been 4-0 as he got another run after that. And it was a solid save by the Bayern Leverkusen goalkeeper. Now, Leverkusen, like I said, did come back shortly after with... It was a bit of a lucky bounce that led to a nice give and go from Kai Havertz. He got, and it pretty much set up an easy goal for him to make it 2-1. And it was looking to be a very interesting match. It looked like this was going to end up like 6-4 or something. But it did go into the halftime 2-1. It was a solid match with both teams getting chances. Inter still looked like the better team throughout the half, but Leverkusen were there. They were only 1 goal away. Anything can happen when you're just 1 goal away. And going into the second half, at least starting off, Inter were just looking so strong. They had multiple chances at goal, even a penalty late in the game. They just couldn't convert. And it didn't hurt them here because, like I said, they did go by 2-1, but they need to be careful, especially going into these later rounds, because Leverkusen were just didn't answer. They didn't have any. They didn't show any fight in the attack. Kai Havertz was kind of nowhere to be found in the second half, and they were just clearly beaten by the better side here. I can't say that'll happen moving forward for Inter, so they're definitely going to want to clean up those chances that they had. But overall, it was still a very solid match for Inter, and specifically for Romelu Lukaku, which, if you haven't guessed it already, is my man of the match. He got, obviously, that decisive goal that ended up being the game winner, and he pretty much made everything happen for Inter. He was directly involved with both goals, like I already said, and should have had more on the night. And I've already said it, his overall body language, it's so much better. He clearly loves playing for Inter, and that's big. It'll be really interesting to see if Man U and Inter Miami, geez. Sorry guys, I'm an Inter Miami fan, so it just slips out sometimes. And Inter Milan can meet in the final. It would be a really, really great storyline. A couple other mentions I have to say was, I'll give Diego Godin. He was a consistent defensive wall for Inter in his 90 minutes for the club. He won 4 of 5 tackles, 3 of 3 aerials. There was nothing that Leverkusen can do to get by Godin, and his legacy continues. And for Leverkusen, I'll give a little bit of a shout out to Kai Havertz because he made, he was the only positive difference for Leverkusen. Diaby looked good at times, but he was just not consistent enough. He didn't get anything really effective for the club. That's why they end up 2-1, and Inter Milan is off into the semifinal. Next, we're going to be talking about Manchester United versus Copenhagen. And Manchester United getting through, luckily for them, 1-0 against Copenhagen. This is not a very convincing game from the tournament favorites. They made a lot of mistakes throughout the game. That doesn't mean that they weren't the clear better side, because of course they have so much more talent than Copenhagen. They had 26 shots to Copenhagen's 9, and 14 of those were on target. They just couldn't get past the goalkeeper. He had a really, really solid game. The first half, like I already said, it was very quiet. Manchester United did get a Greenwood goal called off. It was a beautiful goal, but he was offsides. He did hit the side of the post, and it went in. It was nice. It would have been a really good goal if it went in, but he was offside, and that was really the only real goal threat that they had. Copenhagen did apply some pressure, but the Manchester United defenders were able to form a very impressive wall and block nearly any shot attempt that they had. And that's why going into the halftime, it was 0-0. Now, the second half was much more exciting, with Manchester United getting more opportunities early on, but just like I've already said, they couldn't get into the back of the net. And it was starting to look like all it was going to take was Copenhagen to get one opportunity to upset this Manchester United club, but they just couldn't do it. The Manchester United were a bit unorganized in the back, and they were pressing up the field much more than they did in the first half, and it opened things up for Copenhagen. So they got a few looks at goal, but they just couldn't slot it home and have this huge upset for themselves. I have to give a huge shout out to the Copenhagen goalkeeper, Jonsson. I believe that's how you say Jonsson, who made impressive saves in the second half and extra time to keep his team alive. The Copenhagen defense was just super sloppy in extra time, and it eventually resulted in an early penalty, which, like he has all season, Bruno Fernandez slotted home to take the lead. Just the composure that Fernandez has shown for Manchester United in the penalty box has just been invaluable. And honestly, after that, Manchester United, they weren't done. They obviously had the confidence boost with that goal, and they put ridiculous pressure on Copenhagen. And they should have had a couple extra goals. But like I've already said, Jonsson did not allow that to happen. He didn't allow this game to get out of hand and kept this team in the game. Like, if it wasn't for him, this game could have easily been 5-0. Easy. But this is definitely going to be very difficult for. In the end, obviously, it ended 1-0. But like I said, it could have been much worse. And it's going to be very difficult for Copenhagen to feel good about what they've done this season. But they did have a very, very strong season. To go up against Manchester United, the tournament favorites, take them to extras, and almost win. They had opportunities. They should definitely keep their heads up about this one. And for the first time in the show, the man of the match goes to the losing side with Carl-Johan Jonsson, the goalkeeper. He had 13 saves in this match. There was no one on Manchester United that showed up more than any other. There was more underperforming players than there were overachievers. But it was actually a very lackluster performance with them. So I just had to give the man of the match to the guy who literally kept this game close with Jonsson. He definitely helped his team. He was definitely helped by his goalpost more than once. But that's not his fault. Manchester United just couldn't do anything when they had the opportunities. So definitely Jonsson is going to be getting that man of the match award. Now, a couple mentions. I obviously have to go with Bruno Fernandez. He did get that goal. And once again, he does it all for Manchester United. but this was far from his best performance. He still made the decisive penalty, like I've already said, that took Manchester United into the semifinals, so he obviously is going to get that mention here. And last, I'm going to go with Martial, who had 5 successful dribbles. He completed 100% of his 26 passes, and he won 10 of 14 duels. So he was pretty much, he was the most active Man U player, and was probably the one that had the best opportunity to make it to the man of the match, but he just didn't do anything specific to, really put him over the top. I mean, on the night, he made a couple strong runs, but, just like every other Man U player, he couldn't connect with his final ball. So that's going to finish it up for Manchester United versus Copenhagen. Man U head into the semifinal looking a bit shaky. So next, let's talk about Sevilla versus Wolf Hampton. Sevilla, the 5-time Europa League winners, get through to the semifinal on a 1-0 final score. Now, the Wolves started this game very strong with multiple chances at goal, including a terrible penalty kick by Raul Jimenez. I mean, it just had no power, and it took nothing for the Sevilla goalkeeper to stop it. And that, honestly, I felt like that pretty much wrote it for the Wolves. And because after that, Sevilla just began to get into their game, and they had a few chances of their own that required a solid save by Rui Patricio, which was easily the best player for the Wolves in this game. However, that was pretty much all that happened in the first half. It was very uneventful. So they went into that halftime. They went into the half at 0-0. Now, Sevilla absolutely dominated the second half. It was clear which team was the more experienced side, and particularly in the midfield. The Wolves just couldn't get anything going. Luckily Patricio and the Wolves' stingy defense was able to keep things level for most of the game. However, that all changed when Banega, the best player for Sevilla on the night. Oops, I guess I kind of, was spoiled the man of the match. But yeah, Banega delivered a perfect cross into the box, and it was finished with a strong header by Ocampos, who continues his stellar season for Sevilla. And even after they lost the draw, they lost the tie, the Wolves still had no answer for the craftiness and composure of Sevilla and that midfield. I mean, Sevilla even threatened to double their lead afterwards. In the end, Sevilla just dominated the Wolves the entire contest. They had 18 shots to the Wolves' 6, and only 2 of those 6 were on target. Sevilla had 75% possession, and look at this crazy stat. They had 14 corners to the Wolves' 0. How do you have 0 corners in a game? I mean, that just goes to show how strong this Sevilla midfield is, and the defense, of course, because the Wolves just couldn't get anything. They couldn't do anything. So, like I've already said, the man of the match has to go to Ever Banega. I mean, that assist he had to Ocampos was just absolutely beautiful, and he had 87% pass completion of his 118 passes. Absolutely ridiculous. I mean, Banega is the reason the Wolves couldn't get control of this game. His performance was impeccable. And it was really no surprise that he was the one who supplied the game-winning assist. Honestly, if you were watching that game, it kind of just felt inevitable that Banega was going to have some part in Sevilla winning this match. Now, a couple guys I have to mention would have to go definitely Ocampos. I mean, he scored a beautiful header to get past the goalkeeper, and he also completed 5 dribbles. So he was definitely the most creative attacker for Sevilla, and like he's been all season, and like I said, made the game-winning goal. So definitely deserves to be in the mentions. And last, I'm gonna go with Jules Cuonde. I guarantee I am butchering that name, but he is the defender for Sevilla, and he played nearly a perfect defensive game. He won 2 of 2 tackles, he won 5 of 5 aerials, and 9 of 10 duels. He also got an interception and 5 recoveries. So he literally did not... I cannot pick anything that he did wrong. So kudos to Cuonde, and just another example of Sevilla just taking care of business in the Europa League. Now, next we're going to be talking about the most not exciting, but definitely the flashiest game of the quarterfinals, with Shakhtar Donetsk defeating Basel 4-1. Now, both of these teams came off dominating victories in the round of 16 ties, but really only Shakhtar continued that form. This was the first European quarterfinal for Basel in 6 years, and you could tell. This game was quickly dominated by Shakhtar as they scored an early goal by Moraes, the Brazilian. It was a complete mistake by Basel's defense on the corner kick. They literally allowed 3 Shakhtar defenders by. And it was pretty much just like a picking. I was like, hey, do you want to score? No, actually, you score. You take this one. It was whoever got to the ball first, honestly, because there was not a single Basel defender to disrupt any of that. It was kind of ridiculous. But Basel did have some solid opportunities after that. They just couldn't find the back of the net. And that was pretty much the story of the game. They couldn't do anything positive in the attack. There was a very strong build-up by Shakhtar that led to a deflected goal by Tyson, who was probably the best attacker for Shakhtar in this game, and that's when they went into halftime up 2-0. Now, Basel were just simply outclassed in this game. At the start of the second half, they brought on a little bit of pressure to try to change the tide of the game. They just couldn't get through. They literally just couldn't do anything to get through the Shakhtar defense. And I've already said what Tyson did in the first half, but in the second half, he made so many strong runs, literally all game. He was eventually rewarded with a penalty in the 74th minute, and Patrick hit it confidently, and it sent Shakhtar into the semifinal. Because, they were already up 3-0 in the 75th minute, and that was all she wrote. But just to add a little cherry on top, Basel was pushing up heavy because, of course, being down 3-0, they had to try to get a goal to try to make things interesting. But, of course, that opened up the back completely for Shakhtar. And it led to a really strong goal by Dodo. Just getting it right by the goalkeeper of Basel. I should mention that Basel did get a consolation goal in the 96th minute, but that was it for them. It was just a nice, all right, we didn't get shut out, but it was pretty much done. And honestly, that goal probably shouldn't even happen because it passed right by a Shakhtar defender. So I guess it was their one mistake of the game. But pretty much an overall bad performance by Basel. And the man of the match has to go to Marles, I believe. No, Marlos. He had 2 assists on the night. He completed 87% of his 60 passes, and he did have 3 shots on target. So many players got on the score sheet for Shakhtar, but I believe Marlos did make the biggest impact overall. And, of course, a couple guys that I had to mention. Of course, Tyson, who had 1 goal, 6 successful dribbles, and he did win the penalty that eventually became the 3rd goal and pretty much solidified the win. Of course, there was nothing Basel could do to contain Tyson in this game. His quality in the attacking third for Shakhtar did result in 2 goals. And last, I'm going to talk about Junior Moraes, who was another Brazilian that Basel just had no answers for, and he was literally everywhere on the pitch. He scored a goal, he won 3 of 4 aerials, and he had 3 successful dribbles. So just an absolute overall great game for Moraes, and that sends Shakhtar looking really good into the semifinal. So that's going to wrap it up for this match, for this segment. Stay tuned, because in the next segment, I'm going to be talking about the La Liga season in its entirety and breaking down everything. So stay tuned for that, guys.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Alright guys, welcome back to your favorite soccer podcast. In the last segment, I talked about all the matches in the Europa League quarterfinals, and now we're going to be talking about the La Liga 2019-2020 season. And what better way to start than just talk about where they have been over the past few seasons. I mean, Spanish soccer has been taking a dip, pretty much the same kind of decline that people were seeing from Serie A until this season. And you could say that a lot of that has to do with the exit of Cristiano Ronaldo. I mean, when his Real Madrid squad was winning 3 straight Champions League, it felt like Spanish soccer was on top. But it's just crazy how things change in such a short time. This is, like I was saying in the earlier segment in the Champions League, this is the first time that there is no Spanish team in the Champions League semifinal since the 2006-2007 season. So obviously things are not looking good for Spanish soccer. Now, let's just get right into the title run of Real Madrid. I mean, this is a huge league title for Real Madrid, who have proven that they can win without Cristiano Ronaldo. I mean, that is easily the biggest storyline for this club. And no player benefited from that more than Kareem Benzema, who had his best season of his career, the best season of his career. This was a team collective. I mean, just an overall team win here, with 11 players registering at least 2 assists. So many guys were getting involved. There were a couple letdowns with top signings like Luka Jovic, and Eden Hazard just being complete flops, but that didn't matter for Madrid. I mean, they still were able to get by Barcelona, who had a really strong hold of the top spot for pretty much the entire season. However, just that established talent from those Champions League successes helped this team take it over the top. I mean, they were extremely strong during the restart, going 10-1-0. They literally did not lose a game. And that lone draw was the last game of the season when they already knew that they were winning the title. So they were just absolutely clutch during the restart. And they took advantage of a Barcelona team who dropped a lot of points in the restart. I mean, like, some of the worst losses were like a 2-1 loss to a 10-man Osasuna team. And then draws to Atletico, Celta Vigo, and Sevilla. I mean, that's a lot of dropped points, and ultimately became the reason they did not keep the title. Now, a couple of the key players for Real Madrid, like I've already said, Kareem Benzema. I mean, his 21 goals and 8 assists led the team in both categories. Of course, Casemiro, who's reestablished himself as probably one of the best midfielders, if not the best midfielder in the world. At least let me say defensive midfielder in the world. Of course, Courtois, who was the best goalkeeper in La Liga this season. And good for him, because especially with all the talks that were happening last year about him, where he was such a terrible signing, and why did they let go of Keylor? Of course, Keylor Navas is a huge player. Trust me, I'm a PSG fan. I love Keylor Navas, but it's great to see Courtois, get his legs under him and have a really strong season in La Liga. And of course, it would not be a justified key players list for Real Madrid if I did not mention Sergio Ramos, who had 11 goals this year. 11 goals for a defender was ridiculous. And I believe, I don't know if he led the restart in goals, but he was definitely among the top goal scorers in the restart. So yeah, those 4 players were definitely key pieces to Real Madrid's title run. Now, let's get into a couple of the league leaders for La Liga this season. And you're going to be seeing a lot of Leonel Messi here. I mean, just telling you. I mean, and let's start with goals. And of course, number 1, we have Leonel Messi with 25 goals. I mean, just unbelievable. Just once again showing that he dominates La Liga. And that's not all. I mean, just get ready for what I have next, because it's just unbelievable what he was able to do this season. Of course, Kareem Benzema with his 21 goals just behind Leonel Messi. Just was absolutely everything Real Madrid in the attack. Next, you had Gerard Moreno from Villarreal, who he was so big for this team. I mean, there was another 35-year-old midfielder who was even more important. We'll get to that later in the show. But Moreno, with his 18 goals, was easily the best attacker for them. I mean, and it shows. Now, next, we do have Luis Suarez. Even with all the injuries he had this season, he comes in 4th in the league in goals. Could have easily had a 20-goal season if he was healthy for the whole year. But he comes in with 16. Another solid season for Barca. Next, we got Raul Garcia, who was a huge signing for Athletic Club. And he comes in with 15 goals. Just a solid season for him and Athletic Club. And next we have Iago Aspas, who had a bunch of clutch goals for Celta Vigo this year to keep them out of the relegation spot. And I'm going to definitely be talking about one of those goals very soon. And just a huge season for him with 14 goals on the year. And last, also with 14 goals, we have probably the signing of the season with Lucas Ocampos for Sevilla. Just huge. He had 14 goals and was just absolutely unbelievable for Sevilla. And good for him, because it just seemed like he was having tough. It was tough for him to find a fit for his style of play, and he's found the home with Sevilla. So huge for him. Now let's get into the assist leaders of this season. And yes, it looks like we got a familiar name at the top with Lionel Messi leading La Liga in assists with 20. You've heard that right. 20 assists. Nearly doubling second place leader, Mikel Oyarzabal. I'm sorry for butchering his name, but Mikel from Real Sociedad with 11 assists comes in at second. That gap, I haven't seen that in any other league. That is, I mean, of course, what Thomas Müller did for Bayern this year was unbelievable, but for Messi to have 20 assists and 25 goals, I mean, you can already imagine he's going to be on my top 10 players in La Liga. I mean, I would lose all credibility if he wasn't. But yes, so we have Mikel Oyarzabal. I just went for the name. Real Sociedad with 11 assists. Super strong player. I mean, he also had 10 goals, so double digits in both. I mean, definitely did pretty much everything for Real Sociedad. Next, we have Santi Cazorla for Villarreal with 9 assists. This man was easily the best player for Villarreal this season. Just the fact that he was able to come out of, I mean, he was like not really retirement, but after his terrible spell not terrible, but like just inconsistent spell at Arsenal, he took a year or two off and then signed with Villarreal, and it's pretty much revitalized his career with back-to-back strong seasons, and it's the reason Villarreal were able to end up 5th this year. Next, we got Kareem Benzema. Kareem Benzema, absolutely unbelievable. For him to be in the top 5 in assist and the second best scorer in the league, just an absolutely ridiculous season. I mean, you can understand why I'm saying this is his career season. He comes in with 8 assists, just did absolutely everything for Real Madrid in that attack. And then another familiar name, we got Luis Suarez with 8 assists as well for Barcelona. I mean, him and Messi just have such a great combination in that final third. He's been there for so long. I believe he signed with them in 2014 from Liverpool and is probably one of the best players in their history. It sucks that he's starting to get up there in age and you can start seeing the decline, but he's still one of the best strikers out there. And then last, we got Roberto Torres for Osasuna with 8 assists. A strong season for him and a strong season overall for Osasuna. And you're going to find out, you're going to hear me talk about them a bit more later on in this show. Now let's get into clean sheets. Some of the best goalkeepers in the world are on this list, starting with Courtois. I'm not going to even try for that first name. But Courtois leads the league with 18 clean sheets for Real Madrid and was easily the best goalkeeper in La Liga. There is some argument for the second man on this list, Jan Oblak for Atletico, who had 17 clean sheets. But just the overall defense of Real Madrid were just heads and shoulders above anything else La Liga had to offer. Third on this list, we got David Soria of Getafe with 15 clean sheets. I don't know much about him, but just a strong season for him to be in the middle of all these names, all these big-time names. Just definitely a strong season for him. Next, we had Marc-Andre Ter Stegen, who honestly, in my opinion, had kind of a down year, but comes in with 14 clean sheets for Barcelona. Honestly, a really strong season for him, and but not up to his standards. And especially when you combine what he did in the Champions League against Bayern, he's definitely not going to be getting a call up for Germany. And last, we have Vaklik of Sevilla. I for sure butchered that name. Tomas Vaklik of Sevilla, which comes in tied with Marc-Andre Ter Stegen with 14 clean sheets as well. So, overall, good season for him as well. And he definitely showed it more often than not throughout this year that he's one of the better goalkeepers in La Liga. Now that we're done with that, let's get into some of the biggest surprises and disappointments of the La Liga season. And as you guys all know, I want to always start with the disappointments because I like to end this on a good note. Starting with Valencia. After finishing 4th the past 2 seasons, Valencia fell back down to earth and finished 9th this season with a -7 goal differential. Maxi Gomez was their top scorer with 9, and Rodrigo was their top playmaker with 9 goals, and Rodrigo was their top playmaker with 7 assists. But that was pretty much all they got on the offensive end. It was a very poor offense and poor attack from Valencia this season, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that Goncalo Guedes, who looked like a star at times the last 2 seasons, was injured in a car accident early in the season. And when he returned in February, he just did not look the same at all. There was a bit of a bright spot at the end of the year, literally the last game of the season. He got a goal and an assist. So hopefully he can carry that into next season and continue that rise that he was on the last 2 years. But probably the thing I hated about Valencia this season the most is that they pretty much kicked Ferran Torres out of the club, and he in turn signed with Manchester City. When a solid young talent, he's only 20 years old. So when a solid young talent that wants to stay at your club is a fan of your club, wants to stay, you don't ostracize him and force him out. It was just a bad decision all around and just not the way that it should have been handled by Valencia. They literally told him that he was the fifth attacker in their lineup, and there was more players coming in, and that he was not going to be getting any looks. I mean, I just don't understand it. He has the flair that you would want, especially from a side that doesn't have a lot of attack. But I guess they just wanted to go in a different direction. So yeah, Valencia, one of the bigger disappointments this year. Next, I'm going to be talking about Espanyol, who after one of their strongest seasons in some time last year, finishing 7th and in a Europa League spot, they even made it all the way to the round of 32, losing to the Wolves. They had one of their worst seasons, finishing literally at the bottom of the table with the worst attack in the division. The regression in attack was expected, with the club selling their top scorer, Borja Iglesias, to Real Betis in the offseason, but not even their supporters expected this kind of drop. I mean, there was literally not a single player that tallied more than 4 goals or 4 assists. There's no excuse for that. I mean, when you're playing top flight football, I mean, not anymore, obviously, and they have a long way to go before they can challenge back at the top flight. I mean, it'll be interesting to see if they can battle their way back from the Segunda division. But yeah, it looked really bad for Espanyol this season. And now the biggest disappointment has to go to Barcelona, who led the La Liga title race for literally the entire season, and specifically I believe they were up like, what am I saying? I believe they were up like 7 or 3. No, I think it was like 3 or 4 points entering the restart, and they completely lost it. I mean, and then when you add on top of that the embarrassing loss to Bayern Munich in the Champions League quarterfinal, it was just the cherry on top of probably one of the most disappointing seasons for Barcelona in some time. So now let's get into some of the surprises. I mean, we love surprises. We love Cinderella stories. I mean, don't say you don't, because you're lying. And we're going to be starting this off with Osasuna, who was recently promoted this year and finished just a few points shy of a Europe spot. I mean, Osasuna were the champions of the Segunda division and looked completely dominant there, but just no one expected them to challenge for a Europa League spot. I mean, which is literally what they did for most of the season. They only lost 2 games from their first 13, and one of them was to Real Madrid. So obviously they handled their business early on in the season, but they did start struggling a bit, and they were one of the teams that benefited from the league being suspended. That they had lost 5 of their last 7 matches before the restart, before the suspension. However, they did finish the season really strong. And a lot better than most teams. They went 5 wins, 2 draws, and just 1 loss, including their most impressive victory of the season with a 2-1 win over Barcelona with just 10 men to finish off their strong season. I mean, that was just like how Barcelona, that cherry on top of a disappointing season, that was Osasuna's cherry on top of a strong first season back in the top flight of the Spanish football. Next, this isn't much of a surprise, more as just a wake-up call to the world soccer fans. But Martin Odegaard's rise with Villarreal. No, not Villarreal. With Real Sociedad. He had 4 goals and 6 assists, and he completed 81% of his 52.1 passes per game. So, for people who just don't follow world soccer, I mean, this probably is a big surprise of the biggest surprise of the season. However, Odegaard has been showing that he belongs in a spot in his parent club, Real Madrid. And for the last 2 seasons now. He had an 8-goal, 10-assist season last year for Vitesse in Netherlands last year. So just another solid year for him, and it's really one of the bigger reasons Real Sociedad will be playing Europa League soccer next season. And on top of that, they're in the Copa del Rey final, which hasn't been played yet. I mean, I don't know what's going on there. I mean, there's some talks about maybe them playing fans there, but yeah. Martin Odegaard, huge season for him, and now he is going to be playing for Real Madrid. I mean, it'll be really interesting to see if he can break into that first team or even just have a solid season for the reigning champs. Last in the surprises, I'm going to be talking about another recently promoted side, Granada. They finished second in the Segunda Division and impressed throughout the year, just behind Osasuna. They did start off the season strong with a 6-2-2 record out of the gate. They did hit a few struggles afterwards, but they made it all the way to the semifinal of the Copa del Rey Cup, losing to Athletic Club. However, just staying in the top flight was ultimately their goal, but they exceeded expectations. Absolutely. So, just a huge season for Granada and definitely one of the biggest surprises of the year. Now, let's talk about, before we finish this segment, I want to talk about a few of the biggest moments of the La Liga season. And really, let's start off with the least, I want to build my way up so we can get to the biggest one. And it was Ocampos doing it all for Sevilla versus Eibar. I mean, first Ocampos put Sevilla ahead with a beautiful sliding backheel goal that just got by the Eibar goalkeeper. I mean, just that goal alone would have been a great game. But no, Ocampos wanted to make sure that this was one of the biggest moments in La Liga, as he had to take over for an injured Vaklik, the goalkeeper, and he saved a game-tying goal in extra time. It was like the 100th minute because of all these injuries, and Ocampos stopped the goal from going in. It was absolutely unbelievable. I mean, you could see the way players were jumping on him, how big that was. Easily the man of the match and one of the biggest moments in La Liga this season. Next, I'm going to be talking about Iago Aspas' free kick versus Barcelona. I mean, this game looked pretty much over for Celta Vigo. They've been battling relegation all year, and they were down 1-2 to Barcelona. But Iago Aspas made sure to save them once again with a beautiful free kick that just glided right past the Barcelona poor positioned wall and gave Celta Vigo the draw. And this draw, this pretty much saved their season. As they ended the year 17th, just 1 point ahead of Leganes for the final relegation spot. So you can easily say that kick kept Celta Vigo in the top flight. And that alone doesn't make this a top moment, as it also was the moment Barcelona relinquished the top spot of La Liga to Real Madrid, a position that they would never take back again. And lastly, the top moment of the season was very early on, when Ansu Fati became the youngest player to score for Barcelona at just 16 years and 304 days. I mean, it took Fati just 6 minutes to score his first goal for Barca with a header against Osasuna. I mean, and he showed it wasn't a fluke, because just 2 weeks later, he scored again, becoming the youngest starter for Barca. Huge start for Fati in his Barcelona career, and that makes the top moment of this La Liga season. So that's going to finish it off for this segment. Make sure you guys stay tuned, because we are going to be continuing our La Liga talk with the top 10 La Liga players this season.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Welcome back, everyone. In the last segment, I gave a total breakdown of the La Liga season, and now I'm going to be talking about the top 10 players of the La Liga season right now. So let's get started with number 10, Mikel Oyarzabal. I continue to butcher his name, but he was the Real Sociedad striker, and he pretty much did it all for them. He had 10 goals and 11 assists, even though 4 of those were penalty kicks. I just have to give love to this guy. I mean, a lot of the attention has been going to Martin Odegaard and Mikel Merino for Real Sociedad's strong season, and for good reason. However, I just decided to give love to the other Mikel, who was their best attacker and led the team in assists. He was one of the only players in the league to have a double-digit goals and assists on the year, and he's easily one of the most underrated players in La Liga, with, like I said, a lot of players overshadowing him. But he was the key to Real Sociedad season. I mean, of course, Odegaard and Mikel obviously controlled the midfield and did really well there. However, Oyarzabal, I got that name, was second on the team in key passes with 53 and successful dribbles with 61. He averaged 1.4 key passes and 1.6 successful dribbles per game. He can score in so many different ways as well. You want your volleys, he's got that. Wonder goals from outside the box, he's got that. Check. And like I already said, he was perfect from the penalty spot, leading them with 4 out of 4 penalty kicks. So overall, a solid season from Oyarzabal, and definitely deserves a bit of a shout out. This might have been one of the toughest decisions, but I just had to give it to him. So yeah, he comes in at number 10. Next at number 9 is Nabil Fekir of Real Betis. He had 7 goals and 4 assists this year in La Liga, and he was by far the most effective and active player for Real Betis this season, as he led them in multiple areas. He had the most shots and shots on target, and he led them in shots on target percentage with 39.6% by a mile. He was also a solid playmaker, completing 81.1% of his 32.3 passes per game, and he averaged 1.2 key passes per game to go along with his 4 assists. He was also the team's best dribbler with a 66.1 success rate and averaged 2.6 successful dribbles per game. He had 147 touches inside the box for Real Betis. No other player had over 100, which shows that, just his work rate was just off the charts, just making incredible runs for them and just making things happen for Real Betis this season. Now, Fekir is definitely not known for his defense, but he did make tackles when they counted, leading the club in tackles in the attacking third with 9. So, an overall successful season for Fekir. I'm sure he would have preferred a nice transfer to Liverpool. That one obviously didn't fall through, but an overall great season in his first year in La Liga and with the Real Betis. There you go. So number 8, we got Gerard Moreno of Villarreal. Like I already talked about him, he came in third in goals with 18 in La Liga, and he also added 5 assists. He was the third best scorer in the league behind Benzema and Messi, and only one of those goals came off a penalty. So he, created a lot of that and was able to get more than just penalty kicks, which a lot of these top scorers usually get. He did start the season off extremely strong with 5 goals in his club's opening 4 La Liga matches. He unfortunately couldn't keep up that pace. I mean, who can other than probably Messi, and the top strikers in the world. But he was clinical in front of goal with a 37.6 shot on target percentage of his 85 shots. Really good. That means, you give him the ball inside the box or anywhere near it, and he's going to finish. He was also a really great playmaker for them, as he was second on the team in key passes with 50 and successful dribbles with 61. That came out to an average of 1.4 key passes and 1.7 successful dribbles per game. He was the second biggest reason Villarreal were 5th in the table and led that next tier of teams, just under the top 4. And I say second biggest because of the next player coming up on this list. So at number 8, Gerard Moreno, huge season for him, and probably one of the best seasons of his career. So next, at number 7, we're talking about the 34-year-old, my God, my bad for adding 3 years on him. I hope he doesn't hear this. Santi Cazorla from Villarreal. He had 11 goals and 9 assists. He rejoined the club that he started his career with after sputtering out at Arsenal. I already talked about that. And it has revitalized him with back-to-back solid seasons. And he was the engine that ran Villarreal's top 5 finish after finishing 14th last season. And he was absolutely clinical and calm for Villarreal in the penalty box, going 8 for 8 on those penalty kicks. I mean, that's absolutely unbelievable. I mean, not unbelievable, but those are usually free. But I mean, there's a lot that goes into that, man. I mean, it's a guessing game, but to go 8 for 8, that's huge for Villarreal. He was easily their best playmaker, completing 81.6% of his 49.5 passes per game, and he led the team with 66 key passes, which came out to 1.9 per game. And that's to go along with his team-leading 9 assists. He was also very solid with the ball at his feet, with 1.5 successful dribbles per game. So not only was he a great playmaker, but he was able to create for himself and did get 3 goals, that weren't penalty kicks. So huge season for Cazorla, probably the best season he's had since probably like that first year in Arsenal. And this was huge for him. I mean, he's now off. It sucks that he's not going to be sticking around for Villarreal, who are, like I've already said, in a Europa League spot. He's off to Al Sadd, Saudi club. I mean, whatever. He probably went for the money, but it would have been nice to see Cazorla really stick around with this team and to see what Villarreal could have done at full strength in the Europa League. I mean, we'll have to wait and see. Now, number 6, in my opinion, I feel like we're hitting a different tier. I know I say that every time, and just to get you. No, actually, no, we're not hitting a different tier here. That's going to be on the next one. But number 6, that's no strike on this man, Lucas Ocampos for Sevilla. I mean, I've already said, literally the best signing of this La Liga season. Ocampos finished the year with 14 goals and 3 assists, and he took the league by storm. This was literally the best season of his career, and it's a feel-good story. I already said, he couldn't find the right fit for himself, with his failed attempts at Serie A and his inconsistencies in Ligue 1. But he was easily Sevilla's best player, and he did it all for them. I mean, there was a close second with Banega, who controlled the midfield for Sevilla, but if it wasn't for Ocampos' creativity in the attack, it just wouldn't have worked out. He was clinical in penalties. He went 5 for 5. He completed 75% of his nearly 30 passes per game, and he completed 50% of his 167 attempted dribbles. That came out to 2.5 successful dribbles per game. So like I've already said, he was the creative hub of this team and really made it all happen for them in that attacking third. And he's pretty underrated defensively as well, as he averaged 1 successful tackle per game. So huge season for Ocampos. Definitely deserves most of the credit and just continues to show, like I've already said, in the Europa League with a huge goal for them to go into the semifinal. And it'll be really interesting to see if Sevilla, with this new team, can win a 6th Europa League title. Now, next, this is where we hit that next tier. You're going to see nothing but top names and big-time footballers here. We got Sergio Ramos coming in at number 5 for Real Madrid. He had 11 goals this year, by far the most of any defender, and is by far the best defender in the league and among the best defenders in the entire world. And he was on a different level during the restart, nearly leading La Liga in goals. I mean, for a defender, that's unheard of. And he was second on the team in goals overall for the season, and he shared penalty duties with Benzema. He ultimately led in that department, going 6 for 6 on the penalties. And don't let him get his foot on the ball, because he never missed this season. He had 11 goals. He had 11 shots on target. Think about that. I know 6 of them were penalties, but five shots on target, 5 goals. I mean, come on. That's not fair. When you're talking about how good he is defensively, for him to also do that on the offensive end, it's unbelievable and invaluable for Real Madrid. But his skills don't stop there. I mean, he completed 91.6% of his 61 passes per game. And even though he didn't help much in the playmaking department with just 5 key passes and 0 assists, his long balls were by far the best on the team, completing just under 90% of his 800 long balls. Now, let's get into the defensive part of his game, which is obviously the most important. He won 46 of his 60 attempted tackles. I mean, if this man had his eyes set on you and was ready to tackle, you're pretty much getting stopped. He won 38.3% of his 266 pressures and 54.3% of his 46 contested dribbles. I mean, almost as efficient as they come on the defensive end, because we have another guy on his team that was even more intricate to this team's defense that we'll be talking about very soon. Yeah, he was second, and this man was second on the team with 49 interceptions. And no moment was bigger for him this season than that goal line clearance that sealed a huge win for Real Madrid against Granada. I mean, to drop points against that recently promoted side would have been really bad for their title hopes, but that pretty much sealed the title for them. It was like they were already a few points ahead, and that 2-1 win over Granada pretty much sealed that league title for them. So overall, another just one for the books for Sergio Ramos. Big season, and it's good to see, especially after last year. A lot of people were thinking he might leave Real Madrid. He stayed and has established himself once again as one of the best defenders in the world. Now, number 4, we're going to be talking about Luis Suarez. Yeah, he finished the year with 16 goals and 8 assists and was easily the second best player on this Barcelona team. And despite having to deal with multiple injuries throughout the year, he just continued to show that he is the second best player when fit. The Uruguayan striker showed that he still has it, finishing second in both goals and assists for the club. He averaged 1.1 key passes per game and has one of the best connections in the world with Messi. Definitely, I hate to rub this in, not the best connection, because you still got guys like Lewandowski and Müller that have been doing things for just so many years now. But, just what Suarez has meant for Barcelona, it goes beyond words, because this season, he became Barcelona's 3rd all-time goal scorer, which just goes to show how important he's been since he joined this club back in 2014. And it's actually pretty crazy to think, how long he's been with this club and just how consistent he's been. This definitely being not one of his more exciting seasons. He usually gets about 20 goals in the season. But like I said, with those injuries, if he wouldn't have had those, he would have hit that 20-goal mark. No doubt about it. And it just sucks to see that he's declining and that Barcelona isn't doing anything to surround him or Messi with more young and exciting talent. They've tried with Dembele, but we're not getting into that here. That's just a mess. But that's going to be Luis Suarez at number 4. Number 3, this to me are the top. Easily, we just went into another tier, folks. Casemiro at number 3 for Real Madrid. He had 4 goals and 3 assists, but those basic stats do not even begin to tell you what he meant to Real Madrid this season. I mean, if there was any doubts at all that Casemiro is the best defensive midfielder in the world, then he cleared that up this season. I mean, he was an absolute wall for Real Madrid, who, along with Ramos and Courtois, is the reason they had the best defense in La Liga. I mean, he averaged 2.1 successful tackles per game. He won 36.2% of his ridiculous 605 pressures. I mean, that by far led the team. I mean, there was no one even close. I mean, I feel like the next one was about 250 or 300 with Ramos. And plus he had 74 interceptions and 83 blocked shots, which as well easily led the team. I mean, it allowed Modric and Kroos to just push up more. They didn't have to worry about, any kind of defensive leaks because Casemiro took care of it all. And although defense is easily his greatest quality, but it's easily by far what makes him one of the best midfielders in the world is his quality with the ball. He completed 83.5% of his just about 63 passes per game, and he had just over 1 successful dribble per game to go along with that, those 3 assists and 4 goals. So, I mean, just an absolute wall defensively, but then at the same time, a huge component to their offense as well. So that's why Casemiro comes in at number 3, and I was very close to putting him number 2. I just could not put him ahead of Kareem Benzema of Real Madrid. This man was by far the star player of this Real Madrid squad. He finished with 21 goals and 8 assists. I already said it in the beginning of the show that he was by far the prime beneficiary of Ronaldo leaving to Juve, as he no longer had to play wingman to Ronaldo's greatness. I mean, the Frenchman shined for his club this season, leading them in both goals and assists. He is one of the more complete strikers in the world, as literally everything was played through him. I mean, you obviously got top-notch midfielders like Modric and Kroos, but the goals don't get scored, and the creativity just isn't there if Benzema isn't there to just play off of. And I'm actually, there's no player that I'm happier for, because there were so many times that Benzema was, kind of like the fall guy for a lot of the Real Madrid disappointments over the years, or just like whenever there was a mistake, it was usually Benzema's fault. This goes to show you that Benzema deserves way more credit than that, and is by far, one of the better strikers in the world. I mean, you can possibly put him number 2 behind Lewandowski, or maybe 3, because you got a couple, you got like Immobile, but like in terms of just all around play, Benzema deserves to be easily top 5. He had the most goal creating. Before we get into he had the most goal creating actions on the team with 17, which just shows that he was the man that was getting it all set up. I mean, Modric was second with 16. But then those were the only 2 that really made the biggest difference in the attack. And he completed also 84% of his 36 passes per game, and he averaged 1.6 key passes and just over 1 successful dribble per game. I mean, his workhorse-like mentality was the driving force to Real Madrid recapturing that La Liga title. And of course, now number 1. I mean, this isn't even another tier. This is another stratosphere. Oh, snap, that actually rhymed. I didn't do that on purpose, I promise. But Leonel Messi comes in at number 1. I mean, there is literally no other option here. He finished the season with 25 goals and 20 assists. I mean, there's just no doubt about it. There's no debate about this. I mean, Messi just continues to show why he's considered the greatest soccer player of all time. He's the only player in the world to accumulate 20 goals and assists in their domestic campaign, and the first to ever do it in La Liga. I mean, he literally does it all for Barcelona. I mean, he's their best scorer, leading the team in shots and shots on target with 155 and 63, respectively. He's their best passer, completing just under 80% of his 65 passes, and he averaged 2.6 key passes per game, easily leading the team. And of course, best of all, he's their best creator, averaging an absurd. I mean, when I saw this number, I couldn't believe it. But Messi, 5.6 successful dribbles per game. I mean, what? I mean, out of every single player that I've discussed so far, no one even gets close to that. I feel like the next closest is 3 successful dribbles, but 5.6 per game? Ridiculous. I mean, his defense is definitely nothing to preach about, but he was third on the team with 9 tackles in the attacking third. So just to add a little, once again, cherry on top to his unbelievable season, Lionel Messi at number 1. No one else is even close. So that's going to finish today's episode. I hope you guys enjoyed. I know I love bringing this content to you guys. So just, keep listening and keep interacting. I hope you guys can interact with me a bit so we can talk. Because I love talking with you guys and, just communicating. It's always great. So thank you for listening to the GSMC Soccer Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I would like to ask that you please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review. That really helps us. Also, if you can please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, that'd be greatly appreciated. Thank you and have a great night.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.